the talk of New York. And some of the best talk is, I think, coming your way now. Old friend of mine, certainly one of yours, Gene Shepard, coming up.
Tell you, it's getting spookier by the instant. Have you ever had the feeling that things are talking to you out of the dark that shouldn't have no reason to talk to you out of the dark? Have you ever stood in a subway late at night and looked up at those subway cards and found that those subway cards were talking to you? It's getting sneaky. I was in this bar not more than an hour ago. A theatrical bar, you know, where actors hang out. That's all that hangs out there, just actors. This guy that I was with goes over to the cigarette machine and throws some money in the machine, pulls the button, you know, smacks the lever there, and out comes his package of cigarettes, along with a folder of paper matches. What do you think it said on the paper matches? It said, "At last, your chance to get in a paying career." It said, "Send the coupon on the inside of this match cover in, and they'll put you on the track of a career at last that will lead you to a respectable income." And this poor guy had not worked for over 3 years. He said, "What the hell is this? The matches are starting to talk to me?" Well, I could sympathize with him because I had a terrible experience a couple of years ago with a match cover. I'm in this elegant restaurant on the east side. I'm with this elegant girl wearing a long black sheath-like velvet dress. You know, the whole thing. She looked like she was carved out of pure alabaster, and as a matter of fact, could have stepped right out of the second reel of a Walt Disney film. As pure as the driven snow. Virginal from the word go. Magnificent. She glowed with a pure, crystalline beauty as a new fallen snow on a January day in New Hampshire. Magnificent. We get out after this great, magnificent meal. We get out to the anteroom of the restaurant, and she says, "Would you please get me a package of cigarettes?" Girls always do this in every bar I've ever gone with, every chick I've ever gone. I forgot to bring, would you please? And of course, as you know, some of these cigarette machines in some of the better bars around town, it's the first time when you pay $4 for a package of cigarettes. You know, 8 half-dollar slugs go in there. You've seen that, Nick, haven't you? It's a whole new bit. So I said, all right, of course. And I put the money in the machine. I'm not a cigarette smoker myself, but I know how to work the machines. So I put the money in the machine. I like to grab that knob, you know, gung, 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 it goes, and gung, gung, down comes the package of cigarettes, and right there in front of her, out slides this folder of paper matches, and in great, bold, black letters on a blood-red background, it said, "Be careful. You may be flirting with VD."
Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Barry Goldwater and Senator William Proxmire.
Thank you. Our nation needs a strong and trained Guard and Reserve. What's your opinion, Bill?
Barry, I'm going to disappoint a lot of people because I agree with you.
We're here to ask for your support of our nation's Guard and Reserve. Everyone listening can help, particularly employers. We'd like to see all employers sign a statement of support for the Guard and Reserve.
This simply says you will back your employees who choose to be a part of the Guard or Reserve.
National defense concerns all of us, and anything we can do to assure an adequate force should be done.
The Guard and Reserve can give us needed strength in times of emergency.
There are many things, Bill, we don't agree on, but We can't afford not to agree on this.
Neither can you. The Guard and Reserve need your support, and we hope you'll give it.
For complete details, please contact Employers Support, Arlington, Virginia, 22202. A public service of this station and the Advertising Council.
There's someone listening, recording the intimate moments of people's lives, recording the moments of love, of passion, of terror. He is the listener, portrayed in the tension-filled pages of John Gill's shocking novel, The Listener. Feel the mounting crescendo of fear as the listener's tape recorder spins a web of twisted emotion, piercing suspense, and murder. Read The Listener in paperback from Popular Library.
It's the biggest musical stage show to hit Broadway in a long, long time. Bubbling Brown Sugar is now at Broadway's amphitheater, bubbling with an excitement the stage hasn't seen in years. Put some of the most talented black singers, dancers, and musicians together with some of the greatest music ever performed, and you have Bubbling Brown Sugar. Bubbling Brown Sugar takes you back to Harlem's greatest times with music by Eubie Blake, Duke Ellington, Billie Holiday, Earl Hines, and many others. A stage show that will have you stomping, swaying, and shouting for more. Don't miss Bubbling Brown Sugar, now at the Amphitheater, 52nd Street west of Broadway. Tickets now at the box office and all Ticketron locations. For the time of your life, for Broadway's liveliest show, for all members of the family, see Bubbling Brown Sugar now.
Well, let's see what we have here. Did you know that high-fiber diets are vital to your health? But do you know why? Do you know which cereal products by brand name contain the most fiber? And since you can't eat cereal all day long, I hope not, wouldn't you like to know which high-calorie foods are also rich in fiber, as well as which high-calorie foods you can eat without adding weight? Sounds pretty good. Well, I have a 42-page report called Fabulous Fibers, and it comes along free if you'll try a subscription, 12 monthly issues for only $5.85 of a magazine called Prevention. And it's a health magazine. It'll come to you for a whole year for only $5.85. Prevention. Now, how do you get it? Well, you phone them right now. 581-4200 in New York. 581-4200. And they'll bill you later.
This is Roger Skibonis, WOR Radio News. Each and every day, Monday through Friday, I bring you 3 15-minute reports of the latest local, national, and international news here over WOR Radio, your station for news as it happens. Do join me and Lester Smith during Herb Oscar Anderson's Radio New York Drive Time program from 4 to 7 every afternoon over WOR Radio. Everyone can use a little WOR every day.
Guy today sent me a letter and he said, Dear Mr. Shepard, you know, I can always tell when they're going to put the B on me for something when they call me Mr. It says, Dear Mr. Shepard, said, we are preparing a series of programs that are going to deal with a serious problem of our time. So do you realize that social diseases are spreading among the teenagers? A fantastic, great, overwhelming, almost an epidemic. And we would like a suggestion from you as to how you would handle this problem. Well, I thought about this. It suddenly hit me the best way they could handle this problem is the way that I once saw it handled. I'm going to suggest that TV revive the old Army VD films. I really would like to see this done. That would turn a few faces. Believe me, there'd be a few hairs curled. Now, if you've never seen one of these magnificent films, you just don't know what I'm talking about. Now, I'll describe to you, you know, if you don't know what they're like, they don't mess around. They start right out. I mean, they lay it out for you in cold, pure, beautiful, festering language. And I remember the first time I saw one of these, you know, I was 17 years old. I had just become a member of the Signal Corps. And I'm sitting there in my suit, which was still scratchy, and I wasn't used to it yet. You know, the collar was scratching me, and they marched us all into this wooden hut, and it had these cold, hard wooden seats, Nick, and a little stage up in the front. And it comes, we're all sitting in there. We didn't know. I've been in the Army about 4 or 5 days, and everything is new and exciting. I can hardly wait to see the next great thing that was about to happen to me. We just got in our suits and our shots. I remember my arms were still sore, sensitive from all the shots. And then, of course, there are other experiences like various indoctrination lectures, which are given to you from time to time. And then that big moment came right after. That was what made it worse. It came right after breakfast. We had breakfast. We sat there and had eggs and bacon and all that stuff. And now it's 0830. That's early in the morning. And I could still taste the Rice Krispies. And this corporal says, all right, now, it's time for a series of indoctrination films. Series of films orientating you to the attitudes and the necessities and the life that you're about to undertake in the armed forces of the U.S. of A. If you find any questions after this film that you're about to see, please don't hesitate to ask the NCO in charge, who will be present on the stage to answer any question you may have. A dead hut, right face. Forward, march. Well, we marched off. And 5 minutes later, we all filed into this room, this wooden barracks, long seats all up and down this hard concrete floor. Up in front is this little stage and a screen. And in back of us, a projector. Out walks this lieutenant. Lieutenant says, men, you're here today to see a film which I think many of you are going to find very interesting. I want you to pay strict attention because I might point out that any of you who are in trouble as a result of not paying attention to this film will liable to get doctor pay, and you'll have to spend a lot of time in the clinic and a lot of time in the hospital, and don't come around crying to me if you lose your rank. Now, immediately following this film, the sergeant will be on stage to give you questions and answers, which some of you may have before the film's over. You will also be given a short examination. You must achieve at least 70% out of the 10 questions that will be given to you. If you achieve less than 70%, you will be taking this film again, and you will be taking the test again, and you're liable to miss your shipping orders. Any questions now? Corporal, roll the film. And the lights went down. Little did any of us realize we are about to have one of the great traumatic experiences of our new life. Our introduction into the life the way it really is. Yes, life the way it really is. The room darkened, and back of us you could hear the projection machine. On the black screen says a U.S. Army Signal Corps film. And then the theme began. This is a U.S. Signal Corps production. The following film contains classified material under Classification Regulation 6SJ7, War Department number 17D. U.S. Signal Corps film number 6SJ7, GT. Produced by the U.S. Signal Corps Training Film and Center, Long Island, New York. Classified material. Title of the film, Watch for the Green Light. Well, we're all sitting there, leaning forward now, because if there's anything a 17-year-old kid likes better than a movie, I'd like to know. And, it sounded like a Sidney Greenstreet film, this thing of the green light. Somehow it had a mysterious quality to it. Little did we realize how mysterious it was going to be. Before we go any further, this is WOR, New York. By the way, this is the theme that they did play for the U.S. Signal Corps films. And then slowly the theme faded out. And now we are inside what appears to be somebody's office. On the screen is a bookcase with large numbers of books, a quick shot. And as the camera dollies from left to right, we see that these books are big, heavy tomes entitled things like Histology, Gray's Anatomy. And the camera slowly dollies back, and now, looking at us full face, of all people, is Judge Hardy. Judge Hardy. Well, all of you have seen Andy Hardy. You know who Mickey Rooney's father is. You know old Judge Hardy. But it's the first I can't believe it. Judge Hardy is wearing the uniform of the U.S. Army. He's got a Army, and he's a colonel. Judge Hardy's a colonel. Well, you know, right away I think, my God, it's an Andy Hardy film. And Gasser's sitting next to me. He says, hey, when you see this chick that he's got in this one? And then the judge starts to speak. And he says the following. Men, he's looking right at us. Now, this is not the kind of movie we're used to, because mostly people in the movies talk to each other. They don't talk to you, right? Looks right at me. He says, men, as an officer of the Army Medical Corps, it is my duty to make you aware of certain facts. I wish that all of you, from here on in now, would pay strict and close attention to what you are about to see. Judge Hardy is telling us to pay attention. Now, Andy Hardy, Mickey Rooney always listened to the judge when he talked. So all of us leaned forward, you know, expecting him to tell us about how we can't have the car Friday night, you know, some nice thing like that. When the judge turns around, and back of him is one of these things they have in classrooms, you know, that look like a shade. It's in a tube, hangs over the blackboard, and it's got a little ring on it, and you pull it down, you know, and down comes the map of Peru or something like that, you know. He reaches back, and he pulls it down, zap, and the camera dollies in. And instantly, 5 guys in the company fainted dead away. Ah! Unbelievable. What a shot. My God, is it what I think it is? At that point, Judge Hardy reappears. He's peeking into the screen from around the front of this unbelievable picture. He says, men, what you are seeing is the evil result that comes about from not listening to the lectures that you are about to hear. Look at this carefully. We're sitting there down low in the seat, oh my God, and it's in color. It's in color. Fills the whole screen. And then the judge says, and now, men, I want to tell you the story of how this came about. Watch carefully. Came about in a camp just like the one you're in. And it happened to a GI just like you are. And the screen got all hazy, kind of dark. And now we are on a street. The film modulates to a street. Looked exactly like Neosho, Missouri, where I had been not more than 5 hours before. So, my God, the street light. And there are 2 GIs casually walking down the street. One guy's a tall, skinny guy wearing a overseas cap, and another guy's a short, squat-looking guy wearing a garrison cap. Both PFCs in the Signal Corps, which is exactly what all of us were. And these 2 guys are walking down the street. One guy says to the first guy, he says, hey, he said, I'll see you later. I'm going over to the USO. And he cuts off. Now the tall, skinny one's all by himself, and he's walking down the street smoking that cigar, looking around. And suddenly the camera slides a little bit left, and you see a street light down at the end of the corner there. And there under the street light is one of the most fantastic chicks I have ever seen. She did not remind me at any point of Judy Garland. This was a lady that had it all. And she had it all in the right places, and she was moving it. And the GI takes this long, cool look at her, and he flicks the cigar ashes into the gutter, and he starts to walk towards her. And he's walking real cool. He's walking real easy and soft. And this baby under the streetlight is watching him from the corner of her eye, see? He's walking along real cool. When all of a sudden a voice comes in off screen. and says, "Beware. He is approaching the enemy." The enemy? There wasn't a guy in Company K who wouldn't have liked to met this chick under any given set of circumstances. And he walks casually up to her, and they seem to say something. Fantastic performance. He just whispers something in her ear, and the next thing you know, the two of them are walking down the street together. And all of Company K is sitting forward on their seats, waiting to see what's going to happen. They're walking under the street lights, and they're talking. And now they turn left, and they go up a set of stairs. One flight up they go. They go up, 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 up. And the music gets kind of soft and sensual. It's playing real cool, see. They get up to the top of the stairs, and the GI takes the cigar. What a magnificent touch. He takes the cigar out of his trap, and he puts it on the railing outside, on the landing. He just puts the cigar there, still burning. And the two of them go in the door and close it behind him. We're sitting there looking at the door. Then, instantly, at least it seemed like an instant to us, the door opens up and out comes the GI. He's putting his hat on, picks up his cigar, hasn't burned down a bit, sticks it in his trap, gives a great big puff of it, and walks on down the stairs. Yeah, down and now this real cool GI is walking along the street. He's looking real cool. He's got it, you know. He's just walking along. And all of a sudden, that rotten voice off stage comes back in and says, "This man has just 2 hours to find the green light. He has 2 hours before it is too late." Yeah. We're sitting there. What do you mean, green light? What's this? What's this? And now we see him walking into a pool room, and he's playing a little pool. Then we see him going into a bar, and he's drinking a little beer. Then we see him in the USO playing a little ping pong. The last scene, we see him getting on the bus with all the rest of the GIs that are coming back from the USO that night. And he sits down next to his buddy, the little short fat one. He says, "How'd you do tonight, Clarence?" Clarence says, "Oh, you know, went to the USO and had some tuna salad sandwiches." "How'd you do, Howie?" "So, pretty good. Pretty good, you know. Pretty good." And the bus drives off into the darkness. Then the music fades out, and on comes Judge Hardy. He said, "Men, as an officer of the Army Medical Corps, it is my duty to tell you some of the facts of the scene which you have just witnessed. Pay close attention. Had this man searched out the green light in the 2 hours that he had for him, he would have been all right, and there would have been no repercussions of that night spent on the town. But he failed to listen to the orientation lectures that you are now hearing. I repeat, he failed to listen to the orientation lecture that you are now hearing. Do you hear me?" Sitting there, you could hear the guys' helmets banging together, you know, in the darkness. I'm sitting there with my M1 between my legs, holding on to it. My hands are sweating. What's he talking about? "And now come with me, and we will see what happened to that GI." And the camera dollies across what appears to be a big white building, and now we see Judge Hardy dressed in his colonel uniform walking into the door. And we go up the steps. There's a big white door with glass, and on it says, "Inspector General Surgeon." The door opens, and we see that same cool GI. He's sitting on a white stool, He's thin. Sweat is pouring out of his mouth and his eyes and his ears. He's looking desperate. And the officer inside says, "Son, tell these men what happened to you." And at that point, he opens his mouth. The camera dollies it, and you see this fantastic sight. Evil soars. And he goes, I'm glad to tell the GIs out there what happened to me. Fellas, don't let it happen to you. Don't let it happen to you. Look for the green light. Look for the green light. I'm going to be a helpless cripple all of my life. I may not ever live past the age of 21. Don't let it happen to you. Watch for the green light. Watch for the green light. The guy looked like he was going to die right in the film in front of us. We're all sitting there. We had never associated girls with this. I mean, up to that time, girls to me were Esther Jane Alberry. You know, Judy Garland and that whole crowd. What's this? And that big old Signal Corps emblem came on with the cross flag that said, "You have just seen an Army Signal Corps film. This contains classified material. Do not divulge its contents. The enemy is listening." Gasser says, "You mean the girls are listening or what? Who's the enemy? What's this? I mean, you can't tell what?" Army Signal Corps film number 6SJ7. Produced at the Army Training Signal Corps Film Center, Long Island, New York. Out goes the theme, on comes the lights. And Company K is sitting there in a cold sweat. 3 guys are laying flat out on the ground. One guy's heaved all over his gas mask. What a fantastic sight. I want to tell you. I mean, every guy in that crowd was at least 20 pounds lighter. Just from sheer fear. And then this sergeant walks up to the front of the room, gets up on the stage, and says the following. "All right, men's. My name is Sergeant Kowalski. I'm here to give you any information that any of you may be bothering you about the film you have just seen. We are also going to give you a little examination in just a few moments, so if you have any questions, you better ask them now. If you don't have any questions, you better know what you're talking about. Any questions?" Well, of course, everybody in the company had only one question. Where can we meet this chick, first of all? I mean, that was the first question. But then after that, one guy in the front of the platoon raises his hand, he just raised up. With that, Kowalski says, "All right, you man down there in the front row, what's your question?" He says, well, Sergeant, what'd they do in that room? With that, everybody in the whole crowd, busted up. Except me and Gasser and maybe Zinsmeister, because we didn't know what they did in that room either. Sergeant then says, "You mean to tell me none of you know what they done in that room?" Dead silence. "You mean I'm going to have to explain that to you? As well as explain to you the various social diseases that this film is about? You mean I got to start with the birds and the bees?" "All right, I will start with the birds and the bees. All of you seen bees, right? Well, you don't think them bees just come on them flowers, do you? How do you think a bee gets to be a bee? Well, I'll tell you what he does. He flies around and he finds out a lady bee, right? And a lady bee sits down there in them weeds, and a big bee comes along, a male bee finds her, and the next thing you know, you got other bees. Any questions?" Dead silence. I mean, now all of a sudden we're in a biology lesson about bees. The hell's this got to do what happened in that room? And then he goes on to elucidate. Yeah, I'm just going to tell you one thing now. And the only one thing you gotta remember. After you go to town and you have any hanky-panky, any of you guys, you look for the green light. Now, there's going to be a green light. And before you leave the company area, you ask the OD or the CQ where the green lights is in that town you're going to, and you find that green light, you get there within 2 hours. You get there within 2 hours, you're going to be okay. Now, if you don't get there within 2 hours, you're going to come home and you're going to have the biggest cold sore you ever saw, and it's going to be in places you don't want to see. You hear me? And when they catch you down at the clinic with that, we're just going to put you on no pay, and if you got a PFC stripe, you ain't got it that morning. Now, that's all you got to know. Any questions? We had no questions. At that, they passed around this little card with the 10 little punch mark questions. You had to punch out the hole. It says yes or no. Answer yes or no. 2 hours is the time required to find the green light. Yes or no? Yes. You can lose your rank if you do not do this and get sick because of it. Yes or no? Yes. This is caused by hanky-panky in town. Yes or no? Yes. Do you wish to get that? Yes or no? Well, now everybody thought about that question. Because it looked like that guy was having a hell of a lot of fun. It looked like he was doing better than that guy that had the tuna salad sandwiches, for starters, right there. But I figure, you know how it is, Nick, when you're taking an exam, there's two ways to answer a question: the real way, the truthful way, and the way to get the good grade, right? So I hit the yes. The next question said, do you have any further questions about the foregoing, yes or no? No. Did you enjoy this film, yes or no? Yes. Oh, that was great. Two of the guys that were fainted were starting to crawl up on their knees. One guy was heaving in his helmet right under my feet. This film was graphic, to put it mildly. And so the cards were picked up by the lieutenant. Kowalski stood up in front of us and says, all right, men, file on out, and I want you to line up in the column of twos outside of the theater. Let's go. Come on, move it. Get the lead out. Come on, move it. We got up, carrying our guns. By the way, at this point, you had to carry your M1 everywhere you went, even when you slept. So I picked up the M1. Gasser picked up his M1. We filed out. We stood outside the theater in the blistering sun with our helmets picking up that golden ray. He said, all right, column of twos, left fees, forward, march. And we moved on out. And 15 minutes later, we're watching a film on the care and maintenance, the stripping of, and the operation of the gas-operated semi-automatic M1 military rifle, which incidentally film we forgot immediately. But not one of us forgot that magnificent film starring that spectacular GI who just moved on up those stairs. And the next time I saw that film, of course, everybody wanted to see it again. The next time I saw that film again now, everybody's anticipating it. And so when he puts his cigar on the banister, there was a roar of applause. That's such a cool move. Such a cool move. And I always felt, this is the way to take care of the problem. Put a couple of those good old films on TV, and I want to tell you, social diseases would slowly sink in the West.
Another opening, another show, another way just to let you know that Dry Dock Country is sure to grow. Another opening and another show at 85th Street and Lexington, with gifts no favors for everyone. This very day is the time to go. Another opening and another show. Come into the new Dry Dock at 85th Street and Lexington Avenue and open a savings account anytime before January 12th. There are favors for everyone and valuable gifts for new depositors. All deposits for gifts must remain 14 months. Don't forget, before January 12th. Another opening, another show. A dry dock opening's the place to go. For gifts and favors, come say hello. A dry dock opening and another show.
In White Plains and Katona, too. Dry Dock Savings Bank, member FDIC.
Well, we have here a spot for you, luchos. And, it's really kind of a pleasure to do a spot for luchos, actually, in spite of the fact that spots are coming out all over me here. But Luchow's is a really elegant restaurant. If you're coming from out of town, very seriously, and you have never visited Luchow's, I'm surprised the number of New Yorkers who haven't. But for over 95 years, this is a now historic restaurant. Great German food, all kinds of continental food. They have the greatest collection, by the way, of spectacular imported beers of any place in town. This is Luchow's. Really a fine restaurant, great restaurant, 95 years, and it's located at 110 East 14th Street. And they have luncheon and dinner, and by the way, it's open 7 days a week. So call Heino, call them for reservations at 477-4860, and they have free valet parking nightly. Luchow's.
Did you know that there are over 2,000 hereditary diseases, and they can affect any part of the body? This is John Scott speaking for the National Genetics Foundation, which says that under certain circumstances, any one of these diseases may affect you or your family. If you want to know more about hereditary diseases and conditions and what they may mean to you or your children, write to the National Genetics Foundation, Box 6666, Radio City Station, New York 10019, or call 265-3166.
You know what, Art, I'm going to give you a quiz. Let's just see if there's any ex-GIs out there. That film had a code name among GIs. They called it a name. What was the name of the film? What did they call it? I will award a brass figurine with bronze oak leaf palm for any ex-dog face who can tell me that what GIs called that film. They did not refer to it in any way, shape, or form as the green light. What is it? And did I ever tell you that? Of course, I think I did tell you the time that that film, by some strange louse up, some screw up in the film cans, that film got into a pile of public service films on a TV station out in Cincinnati. And one of my buddies, who was an engineer, you know how late at night the TV stations come on with these public service films, like forestry in Oregon, how to save the bird, these little 15-minute films, these public PS films. Well, on one night, this guy is queuing up a film, and he's an ex-Navy man, so he's seen this film. So he's queuing up this film. It's 1 o'clock in the morning, and he's putting it into the film chain. And he sees that in this film can, it had been misfiled somehow, somewhere in the government or someplace. Here it is, this fantastic film. And so he says, I'm not going to say a word. So sure enough, when it came up, he just throws it out in the air, and bam, there it goes. Well, I can just imagine what happened. 5 minutes after the film comes on TV, and you can see all these guys sitting around, watching the last gasp of the television station for the day. They've just watched a John Garfield movie when suddenly on comes this is an Army Signal Corps classified film. He said, yeah, that's familiar. And then it fades out, and on comes Judge Hardy. I can just see, hey, Myrtle, that film is on, the one I told you about, the one in the Army, where do you see this? And within 5 minutes, 5,000 guys are calling each other, getting them out of bed to watch the film. It's on TV. What was that film called in the Army? Come on. Yeah, we know you know everything. We're not asking you. We're asking, and you're wrong, by the way, what was the film called in the Army? What did the guys call it? It had a name. You mean to tell me I'm the only guy that remembers what they called that film? I can't believe it. Lee, you say you know it, what they call it? All right, let's see. I can't see how you would know it. The heck, you must have heard it from me. You didn't hear it. Yeah? Right. How did you know? You got it from me. I see. That's right. What a great film. And I think that would clear up a lot of the problems. Of course, there's mysterious stuff going on everywhere. You can't get around it. It's witchcraft is coming back. It's a big. Oh yeah, it's strong. It's a big thing these days. We just got a news note in our newsroom here from Venezuela. A taxi driver died from the treatment 3 witches gave him to relieve his sadness and make him lucky in love. First, he drank a potion, 2 pints of water, into which were mixed a rattlesnake, several scorpions, black moth's wings, a rat's tail, and a good measure of rum. Then he was ringed with gunpowder, which the witches lit, and the room was sealed and made airtight. Well, they did it. They removed his sadness. He's not among us, but that's one way of doing. Oh, sure. Here's a guy. He remembers what that film was called. By the way, it was in color, and you'll never guess who starred in it. Who was the GI? Nope, it was not Gary Cooper. A man almost as big in the films, though, as Gary Cooper. The first time I ever saw him in the movies, as a matter of fact, he was in one of those films. And I'll tell you what he played. He always played that. He played the tough guy who was always a soldier of fortune. And I'll give you another clue. He played in many films co-starring Veronica Lake. Correct. Correct. He played the GI, and he played it with absolute, oh man, with a cigar and a whole bit. Yeah. Now, this is part of the cultural heritage of our time. There's no question about it. It's like me getting that match cover out of the cigarette machine. By the way, speaking of match covers, there are people who are students of match cover literature. For example, how many times have you seen that match cover, with the picture of the girl on it says, "Draw me"? It says, "We'll see if you have any talent. Draw me," and send it to the Draw Me, Department F, Oskaloosa, Wisconsin, and we'll give you the test. Well, a buddy of mine sent that in, and of course, naturally, he had fantastic talent, as everybody has, who sends in any of those things. And what are you guys worried about in there? Don't worry about it. We're getting all kinds of requests here by telephone to repeat this great film. Well, one of my other favorite films there was another film that was. Do you still have my theme in there? The Stars and Stripes in there. All right. One of my favorite films was a film that came out da 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 da, and it said subject da 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 booby traps da 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 da. This is a U.S. Army Signal Corps film, classified material. And then you see this platoon walking down a dusty road, obviously in a combat area. And the off-camera voice said, "Beware of booby traps. Beware of booby traps. The enemy has booby-trapped everything. You can lose your life if you're not careful of booby traps." And you see this guy. They take a 10-minute break, see? The lieutenant hollers, "Take 10! Take 10!" And the entire company squats down. The guys are taking their packs off. And one guy gets up and walks around the back of this blasted-out farmhouse. And there is this privy with a moon cut in the door. And he goes into the privy, closes the door, and then you hear, kaboom! And the privy just goes up in a big cloud of smoke. And one of the guys sitting down there in the middle of the dust sees his friend go up in a cloud of dust in the privy. And he says, "I told him to go in the bushes." Everybody roared. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Lee, you're the only one that remembered. We will award a brass figurine with bronze oak leaf palm to any ex-GI who rise out of that muck and mire of the used car world and identifies what that film used to be called. Let's put it this way. He's a famous Walt Disney character. No, it was not called a Pluto pup. Although that wouldn't have been bad. Bring it up large, Nicholas, please. This is WOR New York.